Let the controversial call between the Detroit Lions and the Dallas Cowboys, which I didn't
Yeah.
fully understand at first, but now after kind of reading and looking into it, I don't blame the I don't blame the refs to a point, but the refs absolutely screwed. I mean, the Lions screwed the Lions. Jared Goff played terribly, so
Yeah.
but they probably should have won that game anyway. Now, I'm not in love with Dan Campbell's like, fuck you, refs. We're going to go for it on 4th and 7. Like, I'm not a fan of that. I probably should have took the points there. But I get it. I get that rage. That aggressiveness is exactly what we love about Dan Campbell. So I
Yeah.
can't criticize him for that because honestly, that's what got him there. And I do understand the rage part of it. And so
They had already clinched at that point, right?
a playoff. Yes.
They had clinched. Yeah. So I'll be honest with you. I didn't like the aggressive play calling. I really wish he just took the points to force an overtime. I didn't like it because I didn't want the Cowboys to win.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. They're playing. They were playing off of a short week and a loss to Miami in a very, very tough game. And the points and forcing an overtime could have been different. Now, with that being said, like you mentioned, we like Dan Campbell for that. He trusted his guys. They ran the play to a T, and because of officials and officiating confusion, they paid the price for it. Now, here's the biggest thing. And I know we didn't do good, bad, and ugly because I think at this point we all kind of know what our good, bad, and ugly is. And either bad or ugly, it has to be NFL officiating. And what I would like to see is just ownership of that mistake. There's to stick with the thing. Oh, it's like 70 reported and not 68 or whatever, and just the whole confusion when there's video evidence of obviously what could have happened. They either needed to review right away, and even when Dan Campbell came out afterwards and said, I always let the officials know, hey, if we're running these plays, this is who's eligible. They'll report, but this is what's going on. So they must have knew and just gotten confused. But the fact that they're just sticking with it, like, no, 70 definitely report. It was 7. That's what bothers me. There needs to be some type of ownership. Now, with that being said, thanks to Twitter and everybody posting their own individual statistics and just facts about the game. At _ML football tweeted shortly thereafter that the head ref, Brad Allen, has called 3 primetime games this year. All have ended horribly. Obviously, he listed the loss that costed the Lions the game. He costed the Chiefs a win versus the Packers by not calling the pass interference. And then, of course, he called 10 penalties against the Dolphins and 0 on the Eagles when the Dolphins and Eagles met. In itself. So obviously, look, we can sit here and blame it on a multitude of things. We know the officiating has been terrible. Some individuals with tinfoil hats on, and I do believe a part of this thinks that live betting and sports books and sports gambling has honestly paid the price, and some of these officials may be calling games to make a little bit of scratch. That might be happening. Guess what? That could have been happening underground for a while now, but I think the fact that it's more widespread is it's affecting it even more so. But my God, Jerm, how many times do we have to sit here? How many times do we have to sit here and say, why can't the NFL just use some type of review? If you get it wrong, face it and move on. Face it, overturn it, and move on. The discussion needs to be more than just discussion of officials on the field and going from there. Take the time. Football's already long enough as it is. Almost as long, maybe longer than baseball at this point with the new pitch clock. Take more time. Get it right. Especially in this case when this could inadvertently screw the Lions more for home field advantage down the line.
Shout out to Dwayne Marcus chiming in, says a lot of people need to watch that play again. Refs said 70 reported eligible and Dallas covered him. Why does everyone think the same wouldn't have happened if the ref said 68 reported eligible? Because then it wouldn't have been a penalty and it wouldn't have cost them the yards that they converted on. That's why. And also pylon footage caught both players reporting eligible, which again, if the Lions were going to run a play in that instance, they've already done that. And so the NFL also sent a tape, correct procedures. Like they sent all this stuff to all 32 teams, which I find odd. if the refs think they were in the right, why did the NFL feel like they needed to justify what they were doing and send instructional videos to referees and to all 32 teams? It just it was a bad look, and obviously the NFL knew that because Brad Allen and his crew got downgraded, and they're not doing any playoff games. They basically got relegated to like the worst. Like I think they're doing the Bucks, Panthers game or something like that. So it's
The Panthers will probably win.
The Bucks better win if they want to win this division, because I think that's what it's for.
They have a 99% chance of making it in the playoffs. So it's almost damn near certain. All they need to do is win. Same thing with Dwayne Marcus's Packers. They just need to beat Chicago, and they have a 99% chance of playing postseason football.
So, excuse me. You know who is not playing good postseason football, or not playing well into the postseason? The Philadelphia Eagles. Got a lot of drama.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about this is why, it's funny because it's like the opposite of what's happening with my Bills, right? The Bills to start the year or at certain points of the year weren't looking good. And then all of a sudden, here we are, red hot. The Eagles are doing the opposite. They're falling apart at the seams. And so to go, hey, listen, polls have been real grease in the Marcus. Big polls. Hey, hold up. Hey, big polls out there. I like that. So the issues with the Eagles on the field can be fixed. Bad play can turn into good play very easily. The problem is a lot of their issues seem to be in the locker room. You got A.J. Brown acting weird with the reporters, talking shit about the coaching and the plays, but then somehow defending Nick Sirianni today. But I think going after offensive coordinator Brian Johnson in a way that is unusual, right? Mike says Packers on Team Kimmel. Yeah, we'll get to him in a second too. It's basically saying that last play against the Cardinals, where Jalen Hurts threw that interception on basically a Hail Mary, was an improvised play. Like they had no idea what to do. And Sirianni took the blame for it for the team. And I think A.J. Brown was defending him in that moment, but his the way he's been acting over the last couple of weeks seems to say otherwise. And I took a screenshot of some interesting stats why AJ Brown's acting like this, Bert. Weeks 1 through 9, he had 92 targets, 67 receptions. He had 1,005 yards with 6 touchdowns. Okay, he had a bye week in week 10. Ever since then, he's only had 65 targets, 38 receptions, 442 yards with 1 touchdown. Something changed, and AJ Brown ain't happy about it. And it doesn't shock me that the Eagles started losing once they stopped getting him involved. Now, I get it. You get double teamed or teams start trying to take you out of the game. But A.J. Brown's a monster.
Yeah.
Like, throw him the ball. Figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just throw it up there. He'll get it. Excuse me. I don't know if you have any thoughts on the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, to your point about A.J. Brown, when you look at their schedule after their bye week, right, they come back and they immediately, what is it? Let's see, I'm looking at it now. So they come back, it looks like they have the Chiefs, Bills, Niners, and it starts from there. So they had, a tough matchup. They beat the Chiefs, beat your Bills by a field goal, and then they enter rough competition territory where they drop now 4 of the last 5. And dare I say, 2 of those are against, I don't want to say bad teams. Like the Seahawks, their 500 team, the Cardinals, this is the same Cardinals team that actually has been tearing it up on like any given Sunday, just randomly. So you never know what you're going to get with them. But like, those are games that they obviously should be winning, and they dropped. And it came after a bad 49ers loss, a bad Eagles loss, or Cowboys loss, rather. And now they're going up against the Giants, who they beat on Christmas with the help of some refs. I will
Yeah.
say that. Now, granted, the Giants didn't do any favors for themselves, but that game could have went way differently. So is there room for concern? Yes, because they weren't getting AJ Brown involved, like you mentioned. Now, so like I could see the Niners game and the Cowboys game. If he's doubled, I get it. Call different plays. You have Devonta Smith, like do what you need to do. But then afterwards, Seahawks, like Giants, get him
Yeah.
involved. Get him back up there. Get his confidence up there in itself. I understand why he's frustrated and why a lot of receivers like him and stud receivers get frustrated like that and, throw what appear to be man tantrums. I mean, your boy Stephon Diggs has
Yeah.
done it now 2 or 3 years in a row from just being frustrated because they're fierce competitors. I don't think Eagles fans are concerned because when you still look, they're 11 and 5. I would say, from my perspective as a football fan, I watched 2 giant teams in my recent years come in as a wild card position and go through and tear it up and win a Super Bowl. So all you have to do is make the postseason. I will say they do, if they're gonna go the length, they need to tighten it up. They need to stop making those mistakes and to get the same offense that was there weeks 1 through 9 back on that field. Otherwise, they may be looking at an early exit. Plain and simple. So I know everybody talk radio or everybody just, who wants to comment is like, oh, the Eagles, I mean, here they go, massive decline. I still think they'll have life left. When you look at that offense, you can't sit there and say like they're definitely out of it just because they dropped a couple of bad games.
Speaking of draw a couple of bad games, the Kansas City Chiefs,
Oof,
man,
goodness.
I've never been happier. I mean, to be honest, the Bills.
Yeah.
The Bills. So we talked about the Bills playing Miami this week. I'm confident that the Bills are going to win that game and end up the number 2 seed. But if not, they're going to be the number 6 seed. Now, they technically can miss the playoffs, but they need like 2 teams to lose, which I don't think is going to it's extremely unlikely. I think at this point they have a 95% chance of making the playoffs. And they gave them about a 50% chance to beat the Dolphins. So
if your Bills win,
we're the number 2 seed.
A 99% chance they're going to make the playoffs. As it stands right now, they're at 85%. Okay. If they lose, there's a 64% chance they get into the playoffs. Now, with that being said, I'm trying to pull it up because I did have it here before. What scenario it would take for the Bills
to miss or make?
To get knocked out.
They would need Pittsburgh to win. They would need Pittsburgh to win against the Ravens, which could happen because the Ravens are resting, but Pittsburgh's also terrible. Yeah. And I think they also need, I want to say Indianapolis or somebody to win against the Texans. I can't remember. It's 2 teams.
Yeah, it is something that it would take a lot for, if they lose, it would take a lot for them to get knocked. But
yeah, so either way, with the Chiefs, more than likely, if we lose, we'll probably end up the 6th seed because I don't think the other 2 scenarios are going to happen, or a situation where the Bills aren't going to get the 6th seed where they're at now, which means they would travel to Arrowhead. Same thing with Miami. Miami, there's nothing. They're either going to win the division or they're going to end up the 6th seed. That's, so the only difference between them and the Bills is the Bills can technically get knocked out completely. Miami cannot. So basically the winner's going to be the 2 seed, the loser's going to be the 6th seed, and the reward for that is a trip to Arrowhead. And that would scare you maybe last year, definitely 2 years ago. Is there a reason to be scared of the Chiefs this year, Bert?
Look, I still think there's a reason to be scared to go in there and think that, why am I even playing? No. I think any team walking in there knows it can be a winnable game. I think we've seen a lot of struggle from Kansas City this year, and I don't know what you can call it. I don't know if it is, truly just having an off year, or their dynasty now crumbling, so to speak, or twofold Super Bowl slump. I honestly don't know what you want to call it, but in any event, this is them. There's no reason to completely fear them. Like I'd mentioned before, I think anybody could go in there and be like, all right, we got this. They don't hold that same, even if Mahomes goes down and, who was their back, like Chad Henne or someone, I don't know, came in and was just like, hey, yeah, we got this. Don't worry about it. They just don't have that same firepower.
I think it's Blaine Gabbert. So I looked up the playoff scenarios for the Bills. If they win, it's number
Mhm.
2. If they lose, the other team besides the Steelers is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville needs to lose. If Jacksonville, the Bills, and the Steelers all lose, the Bills will be the 6th seed. If the Bills lose, Jacksonville wins, and the Steelers lose, um, or either or, the Steelers or the Jacksonville, whoever wins and whoever loses, the Bills will be the 7th seed. But if the Bills lose and Jacksonville wins and Pittsburgh wins, the Bills will miss the playoffs completely. So
Mhm.
it's highly unlikely that both teams will win and the Bills lose. That will be shocking. But so basically, if the Bills win, they're going to be it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what the other teams do. So the Bills are a little bit more desperate than Miami. Miami's dealing with some issues, but either way, if I'm the Dolphins, I think I can. I know they don't play well outside or away from home or in cold weather places, but yes, Jalen Waddle's not playing. Yes, Bradley Chubb is gone for the year. Yes, Tyreek Hill,
Yeah.
house is on fire, literally. Uh, yeah, before the show, Tyreek Hill's house is on fire, and firefighters are
Oh, that's right. I did see that.
um,
Yeah.
probably because his wife found out he's having another baby by his 4th baby mom while they've been married, which
Bro.
makes the Hard Knocks thing like that makes it a lot funnier to see them like happy and she's at the games with his mom, knowing while they were filming that he was having sex
Yeah.
with other women, having kids, which is like not funny, but like it's just like
Oh.
we got to stop propping up these people, man. We don't know what's going on. Like it's such a bad.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Hey, listen, we could spend a whole
Yeah,
show on
yeah,
that, how we as a society prop up these professional athletes, and some of them
yeah,
are like
yeah.
kids,
Terrible,
like 21 years old getting into
awful
it. Yeah.
people. So, um, yeah, the Chiefs. It's kind of like poetic justice, right? We've grown, we've made the Chiefs this like unstoppable force, right? Like this just and this
Mhm.
which they've earned, right? They've had a historic run, but Travis Kelce a little long in the tooth, not the player he was. Reminds me of the 2018 Patriots a little bit, where Gronk was kind of falling apart, and the team was starting to get old around Tom Brady, and Tom Brady's kind of slowing down and maybe not making as magnificent plays as he used to. And it kind of reminds me of
Mhm.
that. And it kind of is like, wow, Patrick Mahomes is human. I get that he doesn't have the help that he once did, but that was part of the deal. Like he had the best receiver and the best tight end in the game. And, they had pretty good running backs and they had really good defenses. And this is kind of like how fast it can go away in the NFL if you're not careful. And so I don't know what the Chiefs do. Would I be shocked if they went on this crazy run because they have Patrick Mahomes and they end up in the Super Bowl? Probably not.
Yeah.
You know, um, I do think if the Bills end up making it, I think they are the biggest threat to the Baltimore Ravens, who I think are overwhelming the best team in the AFC, if not in the NFL. I think there's no challenge to them in the Super Bowl is whatever the AFC title game is to me. There's not one. Yeah,
Really?
the Niners like are the only team in the NFC that can kind of stack up to the AFC. But when you look at the AFC, the Bills on their best day, right? Like you don't want to play them.
Yeah.
We mentioned the Chiefs. We mentioned, and obviously the Ravens. I mean, the AFC
Yep.
is stacked, man. Like in the NFC, all you have is the Niners. Are you scared of the Cowboys? Not really. They're based.
No, I mean, not well.
They haven't.
I think I'd be more scared of the Cowboys than I would the Eagles right
Yeah.
now, to be honest with
The
you,
Eagles are done.
because
Eagles are
even
done.
the like, I wouldn't say, look, again, I wouldn't say
Mhm.
done, but I will say if you're stacking up the two again in the NFC, I'm definitely more scared of the Cowboys. We're talking about a Cowboys team that went in and beat the Eagles, I think, twice. That Christmas Eve game against
Mhm.
Miami was probably one of the best football games I've watched in a while. It wasn't super high scoring. Both defenses showed up, both offenses pressing too. So the fact that they barely lost that game against, I think the Dolphins are still a really good AFC team. And I mean, to your point, the AFC is stacked with talent right now. So I would say the Niners and Cowboys, the super ultra fan of Dan Campbell and me wants to put the Lions in there
Yeah, me
too.
too.
But I think he's going to coach a little bit more cautiously in the postseason when he doesn't have a playoff spot locked up already, like he did this past week. But like I said, Niners, Cowboys, and we'll throw Lions in there as well. But I mean, you didn't mention the Browns before. Don't count out Joe Flacco.
Yeah, we're going to talk about him in a second. And I just pulled up the Super Bowl odds, and the Niners are actually Super Bowl favorites, which shocks the hell out of me because
does it?
Okay. So think about the Ravens.
So Niners Ravens are the favorites to meet right now. And by the way, did you see that logo conspiracy?
Yes, I did. That's hilarious.
Thread going around. Okay, all right, that is absolutely yeah.
I mean, if you're going to call that red for the Niners, I mean the Bills. The Bills have red. Look, there's red right there. So you can't have purple and blue.
I think it's one of those things. I will say, if it turns out like that, there's no reason, tinfoil hat back on, there's no reason for us to think that the NFL doesn't have a script anymore. Like that, like they clearly do. Like that is the script through and through.
I get it. Lamar Jackson's 1-3 in the playoffs. He has to start winning. His QBR is not great. But
No, it's 4th or 5th on the list this year.
But the Ravens played the 49ers this year. Did they not? Matter of fact, the Ravens played the 49ers. They played the Dolphins. They played the Jags. They just played the Lions, right? 4 teams that we said possibly can make a run to the Super Bowl. And they're also division leaders, right? Ravens beat all of them by an average of 25 points. So the 49ers being favorites or odds in Vegas do shock me. And honestly, I think it's probably, now that I'm talking it out, I think it's a little bit less about the Ravens, is more about, I think the Ravens not being favorites is less about them and more that Vegas doesn't have any faith into the other NFC teams. Because if they were going against any other NFC team other than the Niners, they would be heavily favored. So Vegas has to you have to put an NFC team over there because the Ravens would be favored literally against the Cowboys, against the Eagles, against the Lions. Like there's nobody, and
I mean, they beat the brakes off all those teams this year.
And I get, it's just the Niners Ravens does feel a little inevitable because the Eagles and Dolphins are playing like high school teams right now. I mean, we already know what the Cowboys are. I mean,
it's actually a great way to put it.
The Eagles and Cowboys or not Eagles. Eagles and Dolphins are high school teams. The Cowboys have to go on the road. I mean, and we already know what the Cowboys are going to do in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And the Browns, I love the story. I love Joe Flacco, but they got their ass kicked twice. So, and then, oh no, the Browns won one of those games, did they not? Yeah, there we go. I think that was one of the, okay.
Browns actually beat the Ravens.
Browns did beat the Ravens. So there you go. I think, it was that miracle fucking comeback game. That's right. And the Chiefs offense is, I'm not going to say laughable, but you're not shaking with fear.
Inconsistent.
And I mean, the only other team, and again, this is not fandom bias, it's the Bills. The Bills also a little bit of a roller coaster, but the Bills at their best is probably just as good as the Ravens at, how they've been playing, which has been their best since, I don't know, Lamar Jackson's been there. So I would not count out that.
Well, yeah, I mean, and look, since the Bills haven't had that test yet, the only thing you can go off of is teams the Bills have played and how they fared against Baltimore. And I mean, I hate to pick on the Dolphins here. I know you love it, but when you played the Dolphins in early October, I mean, you basically smacked them around.
48-20.
So, granted, we all know that the last half of the season is different than the first half when you're, obviously fatigued and you're fighting injury and things like that as a team. So, I mean, who's to say? I think the Sunday matchup for the Bills is a huge one to want to make it into the playoffs, and B, I mean, this will be a great test to see, Miami team that barely showed up last week. I mean, if they can't come back and beat your Bills and the Bills end up routing them again, I think that's a good showing for what a Ravens-Bills matchup could be.
Yeah, the Dolphins are like the Cowboys, one of those teams that have great record against bad teams, and I think they're like 1-4 against above 500 teams, and that was obviously against Dallas, who again we just talked about, another team that hasn't a good record against winning teams. So it's kind of hard to gauge the Cowboys and the Dolphins. a little bit of fool's gold there. While we were talking like 10 minutes ago, I forgot to say, I didn't want to interrupt you. Carl wanted to throw his back. I re-pulled while you were talking.
Carl.
He pulled the Seattle Seahawks. So they're playing the Cardinals.
That's what you get, Carl.
Should have kept him. Speaking of Joe Flacco, the Joe Flacco revenge game. And I only put this on here because they just played the Jets. Speaking of Carl.
Yeah. Carl.
The guy, Joe Flacco, the guy that nobody wanted. When Aaron Rodgers went down, Joe Flacco called the New York Jets immediately and said, hey, I still got my number 19 Jets jersey. Put me in, coach. And the Jets said, nah, we got Zach Wilson. We're good. And now look at what the Browns are doing. Remind me, Bert. Remind me what are the Browns in the playoffs? The Browns are in the playoffs? Maybe they'll play the Jets because they're both AFC teams. Are they going to play the Jets in the playoffs?
You know, Jerm, they won't play the Jets. You know why? Because the Jets will be sitting at home on their couch. Much like I want to say the majority of their offense has been all year. Because they're eliminated from the playoffs. They're going to sit there with Aaron Rodgers, and then they're going to take shrooms, hide in a closet, or dark retreat, or whatever it is he goes to, and probably not even watch football.
Yeah, so Joe Flacco shitting on the New York Jets. I pulled up some stats because we like to be stats people here from time to time. I'm going to hit my cough button real quick. All right. Joe Flacco in the last 5 games, basically the 5 games he started for the Browns, 60% completion percentage, 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions with a 90% QBR. I rounded up. It was like 97.8. Zach Wilson, 12 games for the Jets, 60% completion percentage. And that's where the comparison stopped. 8 touchdowns to 7 interceptions with a 70 QBR. I rounded down. It was like 70.3. Trevor Siemian, pride of Northwestern, 4 games with the Jets, 58% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 64% QBR. Joe Flacco in 5 games has more touchdowns and less interceptions than the Jets' 2 quarterbacks they chose instead of him. Yeah. Feel free to laugh because I think I will too.
Yeah. It's hilarious. And we know Jet fans that are laughing and cursing simultaneously. And this is the thing that I think Jet fans are so fed up with this organization is not making sound decisions. And look, you were quick to place Wilson. Obviously, look, when it comes down to Aaron Rodgers or Zach Wilson, there's no competition there. But when you see Aaron Rodgers is out for the year and Zach Wilson, he comes in and gets it done. Another successful week 2, and then afterwards just goes immediately downhill. And you have serviceable guys like Flacco out there, or even trying to go in different directions and signing other individuals. Like, you just don't do it. You could have somewhat salvaged your season if you made good decisions. It's not something that the Jets front office has never done.